Welcome to the Nebraska Department of Education's Making It Stick Professional Development webinar series. I'm Dr. Michael Quinn, and I'll be your host for Module 12, Informative Speaking. Ever wonder why people's number one fear is public speaking? As a teacher, you may take this fear for granted because you're already great at public speaking and conversation. However, it's important that we understand that many people have a hard time communicating in small and large groups, including our students. The Informative Speaking webinar will take 35 minutes. Throughout this module, we built in some learner engagement activities to ensure your comprehension. When you see the pencil icon, you'll be asked to pause, reflect, engage, and write in your viewing guide. Feel free to stop, start, and rewind as needed. After you complete the module, we'll ask you a few quick questions to see if we've helped you meet the lesson's objectives. Let's get started. Here's our webinar's umbrella question. How can oral communication skills be developed, refined, and applied to all content areas? Because we want students to be able to communicate key ideas in a variety of situations. First, we'll determine the role that the development of oral communication plays across grade levels and content areas. Second, we'll learn strategies that will ensure the use of a consistent language when teaching students to be effective speakers. Finally, we'll explore strategies for structuring meaningful classroom conversations. After this webinar, you'll be able to help students develop, apply, and refine their speaking skills. Either by yourself or in a group, let's take some time to reflect on how you communicate. On a given day, what percentage of your communication is oral and what percentage is written? What types of written communication do you use? What percentage of your communication is oral and what percentage is written? Start at home. How do you communicate with your spouse, children, or loved ones? Do you text and email? Leave notes on the refrigerator door? Or is most of your communication oral? And when you arrive at school, how do you interact with coworkers, administrators, and students? What about your students' families? Some of their questions may be answered by a brief email, but oftentimes they want to hear your voice. Step outside of your typical day and think about other times in your life when your ability to speak well mattered. Have you ever given a wedding toast, a eulogy, interviewed for an academic program, or delivered professional development? Please pause the video for a moment and write about your typical day. If you're able, share with your colleagues. Press play when you're ready to resume. What does the real world have to say about oral communication? Forbes magazine identified communication as one of the top 10 qualities that make a great leader. The Harvard Business Review published the results of a study of the most needed leadership skills at every level. Number 5 on that list was communicates powerfully and prolifically. Google launched an internal research project in search of the traits and qualities that make up a great leader. After analyzing reams of data consisting of performance reviews, surveys, feedback, and interviews, the statisticians zeroed in on 8 key qualities, ranked in order of importance. Guess what made number 5? You got it. Be a good communicator and listen to your team. Every year, the National Association of Colleges and Employers surveys employers to see what qualities they want most from prospective employees. Responders to the 2011 survey suggest that new college graduates looking to crack the still tight job market need to hone their verbal communication skills. Verbal communication still topped the list of soft skills they seek in new college graduates looking to join their organizations. So how is our educational system evolving to prepare students for real-world demands? Let's take a look at one of Nebraska's ELA standards. Developing speaking and listening skills has long been an unwritten expectation of language arts classrooms. Now it is clearly defined. Students must practice communicating ideas in a variety of situations, learn elocution, practice poise, use an appropriate register, and maintain eye contact. Developing speaking and listening skills is every content area teacher's responsibility. Let's see how speaking and listening are incorporated into other content area standards. One of Nebraska's mathematical process standards is communicate mathematical ideas effectively. Students will communicate mathematical ideas effectively and precisely. Students will critique the reasoning of others as well as provide mathematical justifications. Students will utilize appropriate communication approaches individually and collectively and through multiple methods, including writing, speaking, and listening. As I read the content standards on the next few slides, look for evidence of speaking and listening skills. Two of Nebraska's science standards are share information, procedures, results, conclusions, and defend findings to a scientific community, peers, science fair audience, policymakers, and evaluate scientific investigations and offer revisions and new ideas as appropriate. And in history, present an evaluation of historical information about the world. For example, pictures, posters, oral or written narratives, and electronic presentations. And for teachers of English to speakers of other languages, here is a pre-K-12 English Language Learner Proficiency Standard from the professional organization. English language learners engage in oral communication in a variety of situations for a variety of purposes and in a wide spectrum of settings. As part of oral communication, students are constantly using language in meaningful interaction with others. Either by yourself or in a group, let's take some time to reflect on each content area's communication standards. What instructional implications do these content area speaking and listening standards have for your classroom? As teachers, we are responsible for using the standards to guide our instruction. But are standards the driving force behind incorporating more opportunities for students to talk in the classroom? Please pause the video for a moment and look a little deeper. Beyond preparing our students for college and careers, why is classroom talk so important? If you're able, share with your colleagues. Press play when you're ready to resume. Speaking, much like writing, requires opportunity and practice. Take a look at Carol Yago's quote about writing instruction. Palmer substitutes the term speaking for writing, and the example still works. We expect students to learn how to speak, we just need to teach them how. Before we examine strategies for incorporating more opportunities for structured classroom talk, let's focus on an aspect of oral communication that is often neglected in the classroom: performing the talk. Everything you do in your class that involves student talk would improve if students simply spoke better. Students would be more engaged and learn more from one another. Discussions would be more productive, and groups would function more smoothly because students would be better able to express their ideas. By identifying informative speaking as a skill necessary for success, you have already taken the first step in committing to developing more effective speakers. Since you're invested in your own professional learning, let students know that you value oral communication every time they speak. Asking questions in class, participating in a debate, recording a screencast. When students are speaking, they need to know that how they're speaking matters. Ask your colleagues to bring their rubrics that award points for presentation to a team or PLC meeting. Make a list of the terms used. You may see criteria such as neat poster, adequate evidence, posture, inflection, eye contact, or expression appear. Write them all down. First, note the lack of consistency. The language may change from grade to grade or class to class. Then, analyze the terms and determine which are unclear. Finally, agree to develop some consistent language and require all teachers to use this language to enable students to understand what is expected of them. We'll look at an effective mnemonic for this in the upcoming slides. Finally, commit to teaching speaking. Develop lessons, materials, and rubrics that focus on teaching the art of speaking. How will you measure speaking? How can we quantify sound speaking practices? Next, we'll show you some sound, Measurable speaking criteria. Here is a mnemonic developed by author and educational consultant Eric Palmer. It's called PV Legs. PV Legs provides teachers a consistent language for teaching and assessing speaking in the classroom. In the steps I outlined on the last slide, number 2 was develop a consistent language. PV Legs helps us do just that. Let's take a closer look at each element of good speaking. When teaching students about poise, our focus is on appearing calm and confident and avoiding distracting behaviors. Explain to students that developing speakers are often unaware of odd tics and behaviors as they talk. Give some examples such as tugging at sleeves, scratching, shifting weight back and forth from one leg to the other, twirling hair, repeatedly saying or Point out that these behaviors distract listeners and that avoiding them is necessary to allow listeners to focus on the message. Ask students to observe other students and teachers talking in class for 1 week without commenting on what they see. Have them make a list of any tics they notice. Make a master list of tics and post it in the classroom anytime students speak in class. Let listeners share what they noticed about the speaker. For example, as Diego was presenting the solution on the board, he kept zipping and unzipping his hoodie. Students will begin to eliminate these behaviors when they speak. Remember to always be constructive and focus on improvement. Asking students to identify and discuss their classmates' tics assumes that you have created a safe classroom environment where mistakes are accepted and expected, and students value each other's feedback. Either by yourself or in a group, let's take some time to reflect on your classroom's climate and culture. Asking students to identify and discuss their classmates' tics assumes that you have created a safe classroom environment where mistakes are accepted and expected, and students value each other's feedback. List your top 10 constructive critiquing expectations that will strengthen your classroom community and ensure a positive learning experience for your students. For example, when a tic is mentioned, a solution is also mentioned. Instead of keeping your hands in your pockets, can you refer to the map when you mention a new place? Please pause the video for a moment and generate your list of positive, constructive critiquing expectations. Have you covered all the bases? If you're able, share with your colleagues. Press play when you're ready to resume. Voice is the second part of performance that speakers need to address. You can introduce the concept of voice by asking students to listen to different voices. Radio station DJs, newscasters, politicians, or other teachers at the school. Stress 2 important aspects of voice, volume and enunciation, and then analyze the examples. Reinforce the importance of speaking loud enough for everyone to hear and enunciating so that the audience, whether it be during a formal speech or in a small group discussion, can hear every word that comes out of the speaker's mouth. Before a presentation, tell students to think about speaking loudly enough so that their classmates in the back of the room can hear the speech. Draw students' attention to words and phrases that are blurred together or mumbled. Incorporate voice commands into your routine by highlighting instances when students speak well. When you emphasize voice in this way, students see that you value making every word heard. Either by yourself or in a group, let's take some time to reflect on how to teach and model passion. Remember, under the life strategy, L in legs, when we mention passion? I don't think you did it. I don't think you did it. I don't think you did it. You know you shouldn't do that. You know, you shouldn't do that. You know you shouldn't do that. As you listened, did it occur to you that the meaning of the phrases changed just by the life I injected in my voice? When public speaking, we are uninterested in using different voices to change the meaning of our message, but rather to sustain interest and convey the importance of information. So how can you introduce this concept to students? Brainstorm 3 strategies or activities for introducing and reinforcing the importance of putting passion in your voice. For example, put individual sentences up on the board and ask students to read them with the voice of different historical or political figures or characters from books or movies. Name someone famous who speaks with passion. Name a passionate speaker that you know personally. Please pause the video for a moment and brainstorm how you'll teach passion and how your two passionate individuals would teach passion. If you're able, share with your colleagues. Press play when you're ready to resume. Think about where your students are looking when they speak in class. Are they looking down at their classmates, or you, the teacher? We have to convince our students that the entire audience matters. If a student is participating in a fishbowl discussion, demonstrating how to solve a problem on a whiteboard, or giving a formal speech, he or she will benefit from looking at the other students in the class. The best way to involve listeners is to make eye contact. They also need to learn to make eye contact with many different people. They aren't speaking to a sea of classmates. They are speaking to a group of individuals. So how do we teach students to visually engage each listener? Here are two options. Ask a student to speak for 1 or 2 minutes about a familiar topic. After he or she speaks, ask classmates to raise their hands if they believe at some point the speaker looked at them. This provides the speaker with immediate feedback about where they looked and where they didn't. Insist on eye contact every time students speak. When students are discussing a topic, remind them to look at other students. When students are showing solutions at the board, insist that they often look back at the class. And remember, it's difficult for experienced speakers to make consistent eye contact. This skill will take a lot of practice. The next time you're in the lunchroom or chaperoning a dance, watch your students as they converse. Odds are, as they speak, they are gesturing. Hands move, body positions change, faces emote. This is typical and natural. So why then do your animated students become stiff as a board when they are speaking in class? Because gestures happen when we are loose and relaxed. Many students become tense and nervous when they speak in front of the class. Gestures support words. Gestures add passion. Gestures emphasize. Gestures can also help students get rid of nervous energy. So how can students learn how and when to gesture? Give them a list of suggestions. Please pause the video and review the gesture strategies. Press play when you're ready to resume. A comment teachers make when students give presentations is that they speed through them. This makes sense in that as our arousal level increases, like when we're nervous, time slows down. The speed of delivery affects the enunciation and the audience's ability to hear every word, and an overly fast delivery tires the audience out. A speaker can lose the audience if they have to exert too much effort listening to what is being said. Two aspects to focus on when teaching students about speed are pacing and pausing. Think about how you would use pacing for dramatic effect or for emphasis. The pace matches the words. We can speed up a little for an exciting part or when describing something fast. For example, if you're recounting the last few moments of an exciting sporting event, you'll probably speed up. However, if you're giving your child step-by-step instructions for tying her shoe, you'll likely slow down. As always, know your audience. Pausing is a challenging but powerful speaking strategy. A pause can help a point sink in. A pause is useful after a rhetorical question. A pause adds drama to a speech. It's important that we understand that it's hard for a speaker to stand in front of an audience in silence for a few seconds. We don't expect students to master this strategy. However, we can make them aware of the possibilities. If you're interested in learning more about the PV Lake strategy, Eric Palmer's Well-Spoken, Teaching Speaking to All Students, is an excellent resource. Now that we've examined the various aspects of speech, let's explore strategies for encouraging meaningful discussions in the classroom. Over the next few slides, we'll share a few speaking strategies you can implement immediately in your classroom. When teachers ask groups to discuss ideas or respond to questions, the conversation often drifts from the topic or one person dominates the conversation. The microlab is a structured protocol designed to ensure equal participation and make sure the discussion stays focused. The rounds of sharing are timed by a teacher. Here's how it works. After students are organized into triads, the teacher poses a question or a topic for discussion. The group reflects for 30 to 60 seconds, at which time the teacher may ask them to record their ideas on paper. Then, the first person in the group shares for a set amount of time, while the other members actively listen without talking. The group pauses to take 30 seconds of silence to absorb everything that was said. They repeat this same process for persons 2 and 3, pausing for a moment of silence after each round. Next, the triad debriefs and refers to the comments made, makes connections, and shares ideas around individual group members' ideas. Finally, students prepare a short statement to summarize the salient points made in the microlab and share with the whole class. And, as with any discussion, content matters. Meaningful discussions emerge from meaningful content. In the four-corner strategy, students form 4 groups based on commonalities in their responses to a question or their position about a statement. In those groups, students discuss their thinking and develop a collective response to be shared with the class. Students in other groups may move to that corner if they change their thinking based on what they hear. Encourage movement and ask students to explain why they moved. There are a variety of ways to engage students after they're in their respective corners other than developing a collective response. The teacher can randomly call on students in each corner to share their thoughts. Alternatively, the teacher can assign different groups to debate one another. Another option is to have each group research their position and present an argumentative speech to the rest of the class supporting their position. In recent years, the Socratic seminar has gained popularity as a strategy designed to help students gain a deeper understanding of a concept, perspective, or text through thoughtful discussion. Rooted in the principles of the Socratic method of teaching, a Socratic seminar is designed to enable students to explore a text, problem, or experience. Students have the opportunity to ask and consider questions and explore each other's answers. The seminar unites content and process into one. The student learns more about a concept or text and how to discuss it. The seminar is a collective inquiry into questions and issues, typically prompted by a reading. Socratic seminars are both rewarding and engaging. Here are 4 easy steps offered by author and educator Casey Cooney to guide you. First, create a list of prior questions. Start with your essential questions for the unit, then backtrack and brainstorm a list of questions that students will need to answer before they can answer the essential question. Then, think of prerequisite questions for those questions and continue adding to your list. This list of questions becomes the blueprint for discussion. Next, explain the basic guidelines to students. Here are a few examples. But, as with any strategy, create guidelines to achieve your goals and best meet the needs of your students. After some practice and modeling, the teacher participates in the seminar just like the students, while also acting as the leader, summarizer, clarifier, and moderator. And for each seminar, the roles will be different. The greatest challenge for some teachers is to break the habits of trying to manage all the talk in the class while leading students to an answer. Which leads us to the last step, letting go. Part of the challenge of running a Socratic seminar is relinquishing control. But this isn't as scary as it sounds. Your students may surprise you with the ideas and perspectives they bring to each discussion. When they feel safe and empowered, they'll open up and share. Here are a few more tips for leading a successful Socratic seminar. Pause the video. If you're able, discuss the Socratic seminar tips with your colleagues. Which of these tips will require some practice on your part? Which will be easy to follow? Do you have any others to add? Press play when you're ready to resume. Either by yourself or in a group, let's take some time to reflect on how a Socratic seminar will look in your class. Choose one unit from your content area. List 5 concepts that are integral and discussed during the unit. Write 5 Socratic seminar questions addressing each concept. Similar to your top 10 constructive critiquing expectations, write 10 Socratic seminar procedures that will ensure a positive learning experience for your students. For example, how will your students know when a student has the floor and should continue uninterrupted? While we always want to remain flexible, we also need to set clear expectations for our students. Please pause the video for a moment and think forward to how the Socratic seminar will be received. Can you tighten up or re-aim any of your questions or procedures? If you're able, share with your colleagues. Press play when you're ready to resume. That brings us to the end of our webinar. Please take a moment to fill out our brief survey by visiting the link provided. Thank you for learning with us today.